saying we shouldn't talk about the urgency or the big issues. But ultimately, if we want to tackle this, if we want to get on the front foot, we've got to bring people with us.
Inside the palace, loyalty was breaking apart and secrets thrived as Prince William faced the unthinkable. Camilla had turned the court into a trap, drawing William's greatest enemy into the palace. The betrayal ran deeper than politics. It struck at the throne itself. Eyes watched from the shadows, waiting to see if he would fall or fight back. This would shape the future, a royal aide said. William's decision was not just about power, it was about survival. And it wasn't long before the storm inside the palace reached its breaking point. Shadows of the dark. The palace stood like a fortress, but inside its walls tension spread with each passing day. Prince William carried the heavy burden of duty, yet he felt something shifting around him. Camilla's presence, once softer, now carried weight. She moved through the corridors with confidence, and William sensed that her steps were guided by more than tradition. "She is gaining more ground than before," one aide said. Whispers spread faster than fire. Servants carried words from one corner to another, always cautious, yet always loud enough to be heard. William could not escape them. They spoke of influence, of alliances, of power drifting in directions he did not approve. "People are beginning to lean toward her," a courtier admitted. At royal dinners, the atmosphere revealed the hidden cracks. The golden table shone under candlelight, yet the smiles felt practiced. Camilla's laughter carried across the hall, but William knew it did not come from her heart. He studied every face and saw hesitation instead of trust. "Her laughter feels so fake," a guest muttered. Loyalty once felt firm, but it now appeared uncertain. Courtiers who had stood with William leaned in Camilla's direction. Their glances gave them away, and William realized how quickly the palace was shifting. Trust was no longer something he could count on. "I no longer know who to trust," William confessed to a friend. He began to track her movements more closely. Each evening she disappeared into private chambers. There she met with advisors who spoke in low tones, men William had never trusted fully. Their presence at her side disturbed him, and he sensed they were plotting beyond his reach. "She is building her own circle," an aide whispered. The palace, with its high ceilings and guarded doors, no longer felt like protection. Instead, it felt like a stage where hidden plays unfolded. Each chandelier lit up the walls, but cast deeper shadows where secrets thrived. William felt surrounded by a structure working against him. "This house feels like it is turning against me," he said in frustration. The image of his late mother returned often. Diana's struggles lingered in his memory like an unfinished story. Each step Camilla took seemed to echo those old wounds, and William feared history repeating itself. His sense of duty became heavier when he thought of her. "My mother would not forgive me if I stayed silent," William said softly. Even the guards at the gates noticed the shift. From the kitchens to the royal offices, tension spread like smoke through the halls. No position inside the palace was left untouched by the growing conflict. It seemed everyone sensed that a storm was building. "Something dangerous is coming," a guard remarked. Public appearances gave the world a glimpse of what happened inside. William stood beside Camilla, yet his eyes told a different story. The cameras caught the distance between them, and the people watching noticed. Smiles could not hide the cold air between them. William's closest allies urged him not to underestimate Camilla. They reminded him that her every move carried intention. She did not act by chance. Each word she spoke and each step she took was part of something larger. "She knows exactly what she is doing," one warned. William started to trace the lines of her growing influence. He listed the names of advisors who stood with her. He noted which courtiers shifted in her direction. The pattern disturbed him deeply. It was clear she was gathering more strength than ever. "She is preparing for something greater," another aide said. Inside him, the storm grew stronger. The palace no longer offered safety, only conflict. He realized the situation could not remain hidden much longer. Sooner or later, the clash would break into the open, and he would be forced to act. "I cannot let her destroy what remains of this family," William declared. He was determined to do anything in his power to expose Camilla's plot. Camilla's hidden arrangement. Camilla moved carefully, yet her actions carried sharp intent. She had grown skilled at working behind closed doors, where eyes could not easily follow. Her meetings were planned late in the evenings, and her steps through the palace were deliberate. William suspected much, but he did not yet see the full shape of her design. What he felt was an unease that deepened each time she slipped away from public view. In hidden rooms of the palace, Camilla held secret gatherings. Advisors close to her leaned in, offering counsel that William could never approve. Their voices rose and fell with strategy, and their discussions lasted long into the night. Every plan seemed to build a net, a web of influence, and William felt the strands tightening around him. "She is weaving something that will trap him," one aide remarked. Her arrangement was not simple. It involved courtiers, political figures, and old allies she had not spoken to in years. Bit by bit, she pulled them closer. William, though left out of the circle, began to notice how the palace shifted. People who once came to him now hesitated, as if waiting for Camilla's word first. "She has them waiting on her command," another observed. At formal events, she carried herself with ease. To the public eye, nothing seemed wrong. Yet William could see the hidden signs, the slight nods, the brief exchanges, the coded glances across the room. Each signal revealed a planned arrangement, a silent understanding among those she trusted most. "She acts as if she already holds the crown," a maid said. William pressed his own allies for answers. They told him that Camilla had been reaching out beyond the palace. Messages were sent, meetings were arranged, and contacts grew stronger. He realized that she was not just working within the walls. Her net stretched far beyond them. "She is expanding her reach every day," one warned. The enemy William feared most now seemed to stand closer. Camilla, in her secret movements, had built a bridge toward that figure. What unsettled William most was the way she did it, not through open challenge, but through subtle steps, quiet enough to be missed until it was too late. "She walks with purpose, never by chance," a courtier said. Her arrangement grew like a hidden garden. William could not see all the roots, but he saw the flowers beginning to bloom. The strength she gathered was not only political, it was personal. She won loyalty by offering promises, by giving people what they wanted most. Slowly, they began to shift their loyalty. "She knows exactly how to win them over," he confessed. The palace itself seemed to respond. Doors opened for her, meetings were arranged in her favor, and her voice carried weight in decisions that should never have been hers. William saw the changes, small at first, but clear to anyone who paid attention. "She is placing herself at the center," one of his advisors said firmly. William's anger grew with each discovery. He tried to confront her directly, but Camilla always brushed past him with ease. She claimed duty, she claimed loyalty, yet her actions told a different story. William saw through her words, and what he saw was ambition burning brightly. "Her words never match her steps," he admitted to a friend. Even the servants sensed it. They carried trays through the halls and overheard fragments of secret conversations. The staff knew better than anyone that something large was being built in silence. Their eyes carried worry when William passed them in the corridors. "She is planning something bigger than we think," a servant whispered. The arrangement reached a point where William could no longer deny it. He saw her network forming like pieces of a puzzle. Each piece fit together, and at the center stood Camilla, controlling it with precision. "She is closer to her goal than ever," an aide warned. William knew he had to prepare, for the trap was almost ready to close around him. The halls of the palace now felt divided. William walked through them and felt the eyes that once belonged to him now turn in Camilla's direction. The shift was not sudden but steady, and that made it far more dangerous. "She has already set the stage," one ally said. "I will not let her trap me in my own house," William responded. Deep inside, William resolved that he would not let her win. He saw the arrangement forming, and though it was hidden, he would bring it into the light. His duty was greater than fear, and he knew the time would come when he would face her openly. William discovers the trap. William felt the weight of suspicion pressing on him, but suspicion alone was not enough. He needed proof. For days he moved through the palace halls with a steady pace, watching, listening, and waiting for something that would reveal the truth. Then, one evening, his patience was rewarded. A folder of documents had been left on a polished table, meant for Camilla's eyes only. William's hand trembled slightly as he picked it up and opened the cover. "This is no ordinary folder," he whispered. Inside were letters, travel records, and plans for a series of meetings. What stunned him most was the signature he saw again and again, the name of the one man he had long considered his greatest rival. These papers revealed more than rumors. They showed that Camilla had been in constant contact with him, arranging not only private talks but also shared appearances designed to undermine William's influence. As William flipped through the pages, the details grew darker. Notes about timing, about strategy, even about drawing courtiers away from him appeared in neat handwriting. One letter described how certain allies could be persuaded to turn against William if given promises of future favor. The betrayal was written in black ink, undeniable and sharp. "She is using loyalty as her weapon," said a guard who accompanied him. The discovery did not end there. Alongside the papers lay a list of names. Advisors, servants, even members of the royal household appeared on the list, marked with symbols that showed whether they had been swayed to her side. The sight of familiar names cut William deeply. People he trusted now stood marked as part of her growing circle. "She has taken those closest to you," a friend had told him. The truth settled like a heavy stone in his chest. Camilla was not only reaching out to his enemy, she was weaving him into the very structure of the palace. Together they were preparing to corner William, to weaken his authority, and to cast him aside in front of the court. The net had been hidden for months, and now William saw it in full. "She means to leave you with nothing," an aide warned. Determined to confirm what he saw, William called upon a guard he trusted deeply. The guard confessed that secret meetings had already taken place. Late at night, when the palace slept, Camilla welcomed her ally through side entrances where few would notice. The guard had seen him with his own eyes. That was the final piece William needed. "You were right to suspect her," the guard said. His blood burned with anger, yet his mind stayed sharp. He pieced together the evidence, the documents, the names, the witness. This was not speculation. This was the trap itself. Camilla had tied herself to his enemy and built a plan to strip him of power from the inside out. "She has drawn him into your own home," one ally said bitterly. The corridors looked different now. Each step William took reminded him of the betrayal beneath his feet. He realized that the palace, meant to be a symbol of protection, had been turned into a battlefield where he was already surrounded. Every chandelier above him, every door before him, felt like part of a cage. "She has turned this house against you," another warned. Late that night, William sat alone with the folder spread across his desk. He read every line until the words carved themselves into his mind. He thought of his mother, of the pain she endured, of the betrayal she had faced. The same shadow now stretched over him, and he knew he could not stay still any longer. "My mother would not forgive me if I did nothing," he whispered. In the days that followed, he tested the court. He asked questions in public gatherings, watched who answered, and noted who avoided his gaze. The responses confirmed the truth. Camilla's influence had already spread far, and his enemy's name was spoken behind doors he was not allowed to enter. "They speak of him as if he already belongs here," William thought to himself. The discovery weighed on him, but it also fueled him. He was no longer blind. He no longer guessed. He held the proof in his hands and the truth in his heart. The trap was real, but it had been revealed before it closed completely. William knew the next step would decide everything. "She thought you would never see this," one aide said firmly. "You cannot keep this hidden any longer," another whispered. He rose from his desk, his resolve hardening. The time for silence had passed. He would not allow Camilla and his enemy to dictate the course of his future. The papers were gathered, the truth prepared, and his determination set. The discovery had given him the strength he needed to face what came next. "I will not be the prey in her game," William declared. "The fight begins." William carried the folder close to his chest, his steps heavy as he walked through the long corridors. Each polished tile echoed beneath his feet, as if the palace itself was waiting for what he was about to do. He had gathered the proof, he had pieced together the truth, and now he was ready to face Camilla directly. The trap she had set was no longer hidden in shadows. He was going to bring it out into the open. He found her in one of the grand sitting rooms, where golden curtains framed the tall windows. Camilla sat with a book in her hands, but her eyes rose as soon as he entered. William did not sit down. He stood firmly, the folder still pressed under his arm. The tension grew at once, filling the room like a storm pressing against the walls. "I've been waiting for this moment," he spoke. William placed the folder on the table, pushing it toward her. Papers spilled slightly from the sides, and her eyes flickered over them before she leaned back. Her smile was faint, but it did not reach her eyes. William watched her carefully, refusing to look away, refusing to step back from what had to be said. "She cannot talk her way out of this," one of the servants standing nearby muttered. Camilla reached out, pulling the folder open with slow hands. She glanced at the pages, then closed it again, as if the proof meant nothing. William felt his anger rising, but he kept his words steady. He told her that he knew of her meetings, of her letters, and of her arrangement with his enemy. His voice cut through the air, and the silence that followed was heavy. "You have set me up with my own rival," he lamented. Her reply was smooth, almost like she had rehearsed it. She claimed the papers were nothing more than conversations, nothing more than harmless words. She tried to brush off his accusation, to turn them aside. But William stood his ground. He told her he had spoken with guards who had seen the secret meetings, who had watched her let his enemy into the palace under cover of night. "You cannot twist your way out of this," William said. Camilla's smile faded, and for a moment her mask slipped. William saw the sharpness in her eyes, the spark of defiance she tried to keep hidden. He realized she would not admit guilt, but her silence spoke louder than her words. He pressed forward, telling her that her plan had been revealed, that the net she built had been uncovered. "You thought I would never find this," he declared. She rose slowly from her chair, stepping toward him with composure. Her words were colder now. She accused him of being unprepared, of being weak, of failing to control the court. She said others had turned to her because he had failed to keep them close. William listened, but he did not let her push him back. He told her that loyalty was not something to buy, not something to steal with empty promises. "You have turned people against me," he said firmly. The confrontation grew sharper as the minutes passed. Voices rose, footsteps echoed in the hall as servants paused near the door, listening to every word. William demanded she step away from his enemy and end her dealings at once. Camilla refused, standing tall and refusing to give up the power she had gathered. "She will never step aside willingly," one aide whispered. William moved closer to the table, leaning on it with his hands. He told her that the royal court was not hers to twist, not hers to reshape. He said the crown was built on duty, not on schemes, and he would not let her tear it apart from within. His voice carried through the room, striking against the golden walls like thunder. "You have no right to drag the crown into this mess," he said. Camilla's face hardened. She told him that he was too late, that the ties had already been made, that the doors could not be closed again. William shook his head, refusing to accept it. He told her that every alliance she built could be torn down, every plan she shaped could be undone. He had discovered the truth, and with the truth came strength. "You will not cage me in my own house," he said. The room grew tense as their voices clashed, their words striking like swords. The staff outside held their breath, for they had never heard such a storm within the palace walls. William stood taller, his resolve burning brighter, and Camilla's calm mask grew thinner with each passing word. "He has finally cornered her," a servant whispered. At last William pushed back the chair that stood behind him and stepped toward the door. He told her that the days of hiding were over, that her schemes had been pulled out into the light. She could deny them, but the truth was now in his hands. Her power would no longer grow unchecked. "You cannot fight shadows once the light is shown," he said. The confrontation had begun, and the palace itself seemed to tremble with it. William walked out of the room, his heart beating hard but his steps strong. Camilla remained standing by the table, her hands pressed against the folder that betrayed her. The battle was no longer hidden in whispers. It had stepped into the open, and it would only grow fiercer from here. This is only the beginning. The enemy enters the picture. The palace was still shaking from William's confrontation with Camilla when a darker shadow began to creep in. The enemy she had invited into the royal circle was no longer waiting at the edges. He was stepping through the gates, ready to push his way inside. His presence had been hidden for months, but now the truth had broken open, and he was using that moment to move closer. William knew this was the next step of the trap. "He is finally showing his face," one guard muttered. The man walked in with confidence, his stride long and sharp as he crossed the marble floor. He had been William's rival for years, always finding ways to undermine him, always waiting for the right moment to strike. Camilla had called him in, had opened the doors when no one was watching. Now he stood inside the royal palace, his coat brushing against the chairs, his eyes fixed on the throne that William was meant to protect. "He has been waiting for this chance," a servant observed. William entered the hall and found him there. Their eyes locked at once, and the air grew heavy. The enemy did not bow. He did not greet William with respect. Instead, he raised his chin, daring William to push him out. Camilla stood close to him, her hand resting on the back of a chair as if to show her support. William clenched his fists, but kept his stance firm. "You have crossed the line by coming here," he said. The man smirked, stepping further into the hall. He spoke of influence, of strength, of people who had turned away from William. He claimed the crown was slipping, that others were already looking to him for answers. Camilla's eyes glimmered as she listened, and William saw the bond between them. It was no longer just whispers in the dark. It was now in full sight, a partnership formed to strip him of power. "He has joined forces with her," one voice whispered. William moved closer, his steps heavy against the floor. He told the enemy that this palace was not his ground, that these halls were built on loyalty, not betrayal. But the man only laughed, brushing off his words like dust from his coat. He said William had been too slow, too blind, too easy to push aside. His voice carried through the chamber, and it struck at William's pride. "You will not take what is mine," William replied. Camilla tried to calm the tension, but her words only fueled it further. She spoke of needing strength in the crown, of finding allies who could steady the throne. William saw through her words. She was trying to pull him into a corner to make him agree, to make him step back from his own ground. He would not give her that power. "He must not give in," one courtier whispered to another. The enemy stepped even closer, standing now just a few feet away. William could smell the smoke of his coat, could see the sharp lines of his face. He realized this was not just about words anymore. It was about presence, about who would stand taller, who would not break. He told the man to step back, to leave the palace at once. But the man only folded his arms, planting his feet as if he belonged there. "You cannot push me out," he said. William's anger rose, but he knew he had to keep his head clear. He told himself not to rush, not to lose control, for that was what they wanted. He took a breath, then laid out the proof again. He showed the papers, the names, the details of the meetings. He said this was not alliance but betrayal, not loyalty but poison. His words struck deep, and the man's smirk faded for the first time. He was clearly shaken. Camilla quickly stepped in, trying to cover the crack. She said the papers meant nothing, that they were twisted and taken out of place. But William cut her off. He told her that lies could not be carried forever, that every scheme would one day fall apart. His voice grew stronger with each word, and the enemy shifted on his feet. The hall was no longer under their control. William was taking it back, piece by piece. "You cannot build your power on betrayal," he said. The enemy's face darkened. He pointed at William, accusing him of weakness, of failure, of not being ready to carry the crown. William stood tall and let the words fall away. He did not answer them. He did not need to. His silence in that moment was stronger than any reply. The enemy's anger burned hotter, but William did not move. He stayed rooted, unshaken. "I am not backing down," he declared. At last, William stepped forward and told him to leave. His words were sharp, and they rang across the chamber. He said the court was not a place for thieves, nor was it a ground for traps. He said the crown would not fall into the hands of liars. Camilla's face paled as she realized his strength. The man tried to argue, tried to push back, but William's command filled the room like a storm. "You will step out of these halls now," he said. The confrontation ended with the enemy turning slowly, his steps heavy as he walked toward the door. Camilla followed him with her eyes, but she did not move to stop William. She had lost the upper hand for the moment, and she knew it. William stood tall, his heart racing but his resolve unbroken. The enemy had entered the palace, but he had not taken it. "He has defended his ground," one of his aides rejoiced. William watched the doors close behind the man, knowing the battle was far from over. But for now he had stood firm. For now he had not let the trap close around him. The fight would continue, but he had shown that he would not be pushed aside. The crown was still his to protect, and he would fight to keep it. "This is just the start," William sighed. William takes decisive action. William walked back into his chambers after the bitter clash with his enemy. His chest rose and fell heavily, but his mind was sharper than ever. He knew that if he kept standing still, Camilla's influence would keep spreading like fire through dry wood. It was time to strike back. He could not allow her to bend the royal court into her own shape any longer. This was the moment when he had to take bold action, no matter the cost. He spread the papers across his desk, each one carrying the marks of her schemes. He had uncovered every piece, and now he was going to use it. He called in his closest advisors, laying out the truth in front of them. Their faces tightened as they realized how far Camilla's reach had gone, but William's voice cut through their doubt. He told them that he would not back down, that he would push forward and pull her out of power. "We're glad you're not afraid anymore," an advisor said. William then rose from his chair, his decision firm. He gathered the documents, tied them with a ribbon, and carried them under his arm. His steps echoed as he walked through the palace once more, but this time his pace was stronger. He was not walking into another debate. He was walking in to end it. Every stride pushed him closer to the sitting room where Camilla often held her place. "He is ready to bring her down," one courtier murmured. Camilla was waiting, her hands resting on the arm of her chair as though she expected him. She looked up, her eyes sharp and unflinching. William placed the folder on the table again, but this time he did not wait for her to speak. He told her plainly that her role in the court was finished. He told her that she would no longer attend royal gatherings, no longer guide decisions, no longer build her webs inside the palace. His voice rang with finality. "You are expelled from the royal court," he said. Camilla's lips parted, her expression hardening. She rose slowly from her seat, her gown brushing against the carpet. She accused him of betrayal, of turning against family, of tearing apart the crown himself. But William held his ground. He told her it was she who had done the tearing, she who had built lies, she who had dragged enemies into sacred halls. He refused to step back. He had chosen his path, and he would see it through. Camilla tried to push back. She warned that others would side with her, that she had supporters ready to rise. But William cut her off before she could finish. He told her that loyalty built on deception would collapse. He said her allies would drift away once her power was stripped from her. He was pulling the mask from her face so she could no longer hide behind it. "You cannot deceive the court anymore," he declared. The tension filled the room as she took another step forward, her anger sharp and cold. She said he would end up in regret, that one day he would beg her for help. But William did not flinch. He told her that he had no need for her traps, no use for her games. He had chosen to clear the court of her shadow, and nothing she said would undo that. "He is breaking her hold," one ally noted. At last William called in his guards. Their boots thudded against the floor as they entered, their hands resting on the hilts of their swords. Camilla's face darkened as she realized the decision had already been carried out. William told the guards to escort her out, to ensure she no longer stepped into the halls of power. She tried to argue, tried to sway them with her words, but they stood firm by William's command. "You will leave these rooms today," he said. Camilla's voice rose, sharp and filled with fury. She accused him of cruelty, of dishonor, of breaking apart the crown himself. But William stayed firm, his eyes locked on her. He said the crown was not hers to twist, not hers to trap. He said the court was for those who served with loyalty, not for those who schemed in the dark. His words cut through her anger, leaving her standing stiff and trembling. "Your grip has ended," one guard said. The guard stepped forward, guiding her toward the door. She tried to pull back, but their hold was steady. Her steps dragged across the floor, her hands clenching tightly at her sides. William did not move to stop them. He stood tall, watching as she was taken out of the court she had tried to claim. The sound of the doors closing behind her echoed like a final strike. "You are no longer part of this court," he said. The room felt lighter at once, as though the storm had broken. William stood in the middle, his shoulders heavy but his spirit steady. He knew there would be consequences, that Camilla would not give up her fight so easily, but he had taken the bold step. He had pulled her out of power, and for the first time, the court belonged to him again. "I have taken control at last," he congratulated himself. William turned and walked back to his chambers. He placed the folder back on his desk, closing it. He knew the battle was not over, but he also knew he had set the course. From this point on, the crown would stand on his terms, not hers. The decisive action had been taken, and there was no going back. This is the path he must now walk as the future king. The aftermath hits the monarchy. The palace did not rest after Camilla's expulsion. Her absence sent ripples through every hall, pulling out whispers and stirring up unease. Servants carried stories from one room to another, and advisers gathered in secret corners to speak in hushed tones. The shock was too great to hold back. For years she had stood inside the royal court, shaping it to her will, and now she had been forced out in front of everyone. The monarchy could not escape the tremor. William sat alone in his chamber, staring out at the gardens that stretched into the distance. He had pushed her out, but he knew the fight was far from over. Already letters were being carried out of the palace, slipping into the hands of allies she had built in the shadows. He could almost feel her trying to claw her way back in, reaching through every crack she could find. He told himself he had to stay alert, to keep pushing back against every move she made. "She will not give up so easily," one aide whispered. The news soon spread beyond the palace walls. The streets buzzed with talk, and the people of the kingdom argued over what had happened. Some cheered William's boldness, saying he had finally taken control. Others doubted his strength, saying Camilla would rise again. Cafes filled with voices that clashed, while newspapers pressed out headlines that shook every household. The crown was no longer seen as untouchable. It was now tangled in a storm that would not end quickly. Inside the palace, old loyalties began to break apart. Some courtiers moved closer to William, offering their hands and promising support. Others slipped away, carrying whispers to Camilla's side. Every dinner, every meeting, every exchange of words seemed loaded with suspicion. William could feel eyes following him as he walked down the hall, waiting to see if he would stumble. He had won the first strike, but he still had to hold the line. "You cannot afford to step back now," a friend advised. Camilla, though removed from court, did not vanish. She set up meetings in grand houses across the city, pulling her followers in and laying out new plans. She sent out letters, spread her version of the story, and tried to turn sympathy toward herself. She painted William as ruthless, as reckless, as too young to guide the crown. Her words began to spread, and they found ground in the ears of those who had doubted him already. "She is striking back from the outside," a messenger warned. William gathered his council, spreading the reports across the table. He told them plainly that this was not over, that the monarchy was still shaking. He said they had to stay united, to hold firm against the storm. Some nodded, some hesitated, and some looked away. The weight of his choice was pressing down on all of them, but William refused to let them drift apart. He pushed them to see that the only way forward was through loyalty and strength. "He is forcing us to stay with him," one courtier said to another. The royal household itself seemed to groan under the strain. Guards doubled their watches, corridors filled with movement at all hours, and every knock on a door carried an air of suspicion. The palace had turned into a battleground of whispers and stares. William could feel the crown trembling in his hands, but he gripped it tighter, refusing to let it slip away. "He must not let the walls crumble," an aide whispered. Meanwhile, the public gathered outside the palace gates. Crowds formed, carrying banners and shouting words of either praise or blame. Some called out William's name with pride, others muttered Camilla's as if she were still their true guide. The noise drifted into the palace, seeping into every chamber, making it clear that the monarchy was no longer sheltered from the voices beyond its walls. "The people are restless," a guard told William. William stepped out onto a balcony, looking down at the faces below. He knew that his action had set this storm in motion, but he did not regret it. He raised his hand, and though the noise did not stop, many eyes fixed on him. He told himself that leadership meant standing tall even when the ground shook beneath him. He could not pull back now. "I will not run from this," he said. As night fell, William sat once more in his chamber. The folder that had exposed Camilla still rested on his desk, its ribbon tied firmly around it. He thought of the days ahead, of the battles still waiting, of the people he would have to win back. He knew she was out there, plotting, waiting, building again. But he also knew he had taken a step no one had dared before. He had broken her hold. "This is the new beginning," he told himself. The monarchy, however, shook on its foundations. It was not just about him or Camilla anymore. It was about the crown itself, about the trust of the people, about the strength of a house that had stood for centuries. Every decision he made from now on would either steady it or break it apart further. The storm was not over. It was only growing stronger. "He has taken the crown into dangerous waters," an advisor whispered. Still, William stood firm. He had pushed her out, and he would keep pushing until her shadow was gone completely. The monarchy had been shaken, but he believed it could be rebuilt. He believed it could stand on truth, on loyalty, and on strength. And with that belief, he turned toward the long road ahead, ready to face whatever came next. For now, he knew the first phase had been conquered. What are your thoughts on Camilla's plot to overpower William? Do you think Prince William has what it takes to stand up to her? Let us know your views in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe to this channel. Before you go, watch the other videos on your screen.